Welcome to episode 28.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice, where we take an in-depth look at voiceovers.
The holiday season is upon us, and there is no time like the present to book your holiday getaway with 3D Travel Company. Whether you want to set sail on the high seas or visit exotic and foreign locales, maybe your dream is to see a magical mouse, or maybe you long for a getaway that will universally appeal to all. For a limited time, my listeners receive a Disney gift card with qualifying Disney vacation purchases booked and traveled by the end of 2016. For more information on booking any of these trips, go to 3dtravelcompany.com and tell them Trenton sent you.
Merry Christmas and welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. Today's special guest is the owner of Antland Productions, and he produces killer demos. He's also done sound for a variation of different projects such as Broadway, off-Broadway, film, documentaries, animation, radio, TV, and more. Stay tuned to find out who our special guest is. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice. Today on the show we have Uncle Roy. How are you doing today, Uncle Roy?
I'm good. Who did that voice? Oh, that's your voice. That's your voice.
Uncle Roy, the very first thing we always like to start off with is just to get kind of a background of who we're speaking with today. So just give us a little story about you and how you got into the world of sound.
Perry Como's Papa Loves Mambo. That's how I got into the business. No, I had that record, and I used to play it over and over and over. My father crazy, and someone told my father, hey, put it in a headphone jack, it'll shut off the speaker. So there I was at 2 years old, with headphones, which is quite normal today, but not back then. So, and then he gave me a tape recorder, and I was the kid on the block with the puppet stage in the basement, and we we pre-recorded the dialogue. We didn't know that was the right thing to do, and we did all that. And this was a passion of mine. My father tells the story. We went into a cathedral in New York City, a big cathedral with the organ sound. And he said, when I heard the sound of the organ in that room, that the sound really got to me. And I had a passion for sound as a little kid. And anything that I could do with sound. And I had I did the school shows. I did lighting and sound. And I had a band and would record them. And then, and there was no career guidance. There was no Institute of Audio Research in those days. So there was nobody to really encourage me that I could do this for a living, be an engineer or a director or a producer or anything like that. So I went after high school, I did 2 years of trade school to learn electronics, because that seemed like something that could be related to sound and stuff, but still nothing about sound. And then I went to college and discovered the college radio station and became their self-proclaimed production manager, because I'd been playing with tape recorders since I'm 5, and doing sound effects off of turntables and car machines and whatever, and doing my own without having been taught, just doing production, just winging it. After college, went around to all the big recording studios in New York City, and I landed a job as a messenger at National Recording Studios, which was on 5th Avenue and 56th Street. And they were the biggest commercial recording studio in New York City. And we did jingles and, radio and TV. We just did every kind of, and film scores and record albums and just every kind of audio project, and I learned this was my passion. So my mentor saw that I was going to be good at it, and he trained me, and then he quit, and I was the next guy, and worked my way up from messenger to the top guy, and then went freelance in 1984 and 85, and been freelance since 1985, which used to be a little more prestigious back then, but not, you know, but you gotta pay your own. You know, there's no benefits, there's no perks, there's no paid vacation or anything. So
Yeah, no real benefits to being the freelance that you used to be.
yeah.
Oh, that's understandable. Our day and age has changed quite a bit since back then.
Oh yeah, because we were analog tape and razor blades and all that for editing, and now I made a very smooth transition into the digital world. Not everybody did. My mentor did not, and you know, when I first got it was an SSL screen sound, which was a wireless pen and a tablet, you know, and it was with it in the very beginning, I would think, well, do I really need the computer for this session? You know, we're so fast with tape and razor blades and all that. And of course, every session really was right for the computer. But I you know, it took me a little while until I finally said, all right, yeah, we got to do the computer every day. But that was a long time ago.
Uncle Roy, when it comes to sound design and sound mixing and sound editing, what are the differences between those different jobs, and how do you complete those tasks when you're in those different roles?
Well, I guess there's the recording process, whether it's recording a voice or music or whatever. And that's just capturing it. And like photography, like old school photography or even new school photography, you have more than one chance to get the final thing correct. My sister's a photographer, and I asked her, so you know, you can, when you record it, you do what you think is right for the end product, and then when you're mixing it or doing, you know, post production, what you do to the file after that in the final, you know, in the final production. So there's the recording, the editing, of course, has to do with pacing and, you know, obviously cleaning up, getting rid of false starts and incomplete takes, and just making a one nice piece that sounded like somebody sat there. That's another thing about the voiceover industry. You know, the old school people can really sit down and blast through a script with very few mistakes. And these days, you know, because everybody relies on editing, there's a lot of stopping and starting and a lot of pickups and a lot of pickups. And there's too much editing going on because the talent really doesn't have the skill to just tell the story, go straight through. Part of that, to take the curse off of the talent, is these days you don't get direction. You know, these days you know, most times you just get a script and they say, here, do it. So you second guess yourself, or you do multiple takes, and then later you try to pick the best of. If you had been directed, you would know which was the right takes and which were the by takes, and you would get to your final, you know, better performance sooner than just you know, randomly recording. So that's editing and voiceover skills. This is, all these questions are going to have some little asides, going on. And sound design is when you're doing a commercial or a film. Sound design in a film, when you go to the movies and you sit there and you see a lake or you see an ocean or whatever, chances are those sounds were not recorded on location. They were put in after the fact. But the fact that you don't think about it, that you believe that what you're hearing is what you're seeing, that's the craft of a good sound designer. But, you know, in commercial work, putting in some sound effects makes it more fun, makes it more real. Sometimes, as I make my demos, I always like to have some sound design in there, and whether it's sounds that I make or I have lots of CDs, but I would rather make a sound if I can, rather than look on a CD and take the same boing that everybody. I'm looking for my juice harp, which is somewhere on the table here, so I can give you a sample. But you know, I would rather make my own sound effect. It makes it more unique. You know, you've heard the same boing, or the same car crash, or the same, you know, glass breaking, or the same the same camera clicks. That'll drive you crazy. You hear, you know, you hear the auto advance.
Yeah.
And cameras don't do that anymore, but that's the same sound effect that people put in.
Do you think
know?
is that because maybe it's so familiar to people?
No, it's because that's the sound effects library that they have. They have the old Sound Ideas sound effects library, and when you look up camera click, that's what comes up. Or if you go on YouTube and type in camera click sound effect, you're going to get that one. But you know, we just did a demo, and I needed a certain sound effect, and we held up the phone to the microphone here, and we just recorded it off the phone because it was a phone. It was a Facebook kind of it was a Facebook file sent.
Yeah.
Sound effect, you know.
Yeah.
But if you need a good boing, you know, you might as well make it, you know, instead of going to the library.
That's awesome. You know, creating your original sounds to make it unique and standing out from everyone else. So.
And I have a percussion kit that has, you know, bells and whistles, and I mean literally bells and whistles and other sounds. You know, that I used to keep in the studio all the time. And whenever we needed a sound, we'd run to the box and see what else is in there that we can have fun with. And, you know, we try to make everything entertaining and fun.
Well, Uncle Roy, over the course of your career, I know you've also been involved with two shows that actually I grew up with as a kid, Babes in Toyland and All Dogs Go to Heaven 2. What kind of roles did you play in those two films?
All Dogs Go to Heaven 2, and subsequently the TV series, and subsequently they did a Charles Dickens Christmas Carol. All Dogs Go to Heaven Christmas Carol, What a Little Dickens it was called, which was a kind of a cool play on stuff. I was the guy in New York for MGM Animation. If the celebrity voiceover people were in New York, they would call me to book the studio and kind of co-direct, sort of very minor co-directing. You know, it was an ISDN session or a phone patch. It was mostly a phone patch. I recorded it on my end, and they just directed over the phone. So for All Dogs, Dom DeLuise was Itchy, the little dog, and Bebe Neuwirth was Annabella and Belladonna, the good and evil angelic dogs.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, so just those two characters, and whenever, you know, I still have the scripts for all of those things. I have to put them up on eBay.
Yeah.
And some of them are marked with my take numbers and all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so somebody who's into that, you know, behind the scenes technical stuff, they would probably appreciate it. And certainly like 10 or 20 years from now, they're going to go, wow, man, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So the Babes in Toyland, this was specifically the MGM animation version, which had Christopher Plummer as Barnaby. So Christopher Plummer happened to be in New York, and this was a 2-day recording to get all of his dialogue. So he shows up, and we're just, you know, we're in a little, it's not a tiny booth, but, you know, maybe it was an 8x8 room or something like that. And this will give you the time frame. He looked at the room and said, well, even OJ deserves a larger cell than this. This was around the time of the OJ trials. So I called the office and said, can we go to Studio B around the corner? Okay, so now we're in a, 12 by 12 room. And he says, well, this is the same thing. He was looking for like the shoot stage.
Yeah.
So I said, listen, we're going into Studio A, which was their music studio. All right. And now there was enough room for him to feel comfortable. And, we get him his water and whatever he wanted to eat and whatever. And things are starting to go along a little more smoothly. And at one point, the character needed to yell. So he turned to the back of the room and yelled. So I said to him, okay, now that I know you're going to yell, now I'm ready for you. You can just yell, you can yell into the mic. You don't have to, I said, because it sounds off mic. Oh, was the mic off? No, the mic isn't off, but it sounds like you yelled to the back of the room, which is what you did. Well, my dear boy, when we did live radio, you could yell anywhere you like. Well, this isn't live radio. So that was the first day. Second day was a piece of cake. He didn't complain about it. everything was fine. But the director, I had dinner with the director and his son, and the director was telling his son, Uncle Roy almost killed Christopher Plummer. I said, no, I did not. But that was his version, and it makes for a bigger story. I have a lot of patience for a lot of things, for a lot of people. And it just made for an interesting story now. I mean, it wasn't, I'm sure the director and I were looking at each other like, what the hell? But look, it wasn't the worst client I've ever had. It wasn't the worst experience I ever had in my life. And it's amazing. Time heals all wounds. Sometimes a project had nasty director or nasty client or something, and you just want that job to be over. And then, a year later, you go and listen to it, and you don't think about, boy, was that a terrible experience. No, instead, you enjoy the good. You listen to it, and you just enjoy it. So time heals all wounds when it comes to audio, I guess.
Well, I know that you also do instructing and teaching, and you help people make demos. What makes a killer demo?
Well, there's a lot of bad demos out there, and there are demo mills. And, I think if you listen to other people's demos and then listen to mine. Now there are some really good demo producers out there. There's a good handful of probably not two handfuls, but a good handful, a handful and a half of other people. I'm not the only one making great demos. That would be just way too egotistical, and it would be incorrect. But what makes a killer demo is hearing the personality of the voice artist, of the voice actor, having the right scripts for them. That's the first part of the process. As I interview, I get to know, as I coach the people, I get to know them. What are they about, and what are their passions? And so we write scripts about stuff that when they tell it, they're just telling up kind of about their life and about their experience. And so when they say it, it'll sound confident. We also have access to the entire Warner Chappell stock music library. So the music is always, there's no old stock music. It's always fresh. It's stuff you haven't heard on spots before. So really good scripts. I'm a really good director. I'll pull it out of you. So those are my killer demos. I also produce demos for GVAA and also for J. Michael Collins. In those cases, they've done the other part of it. They wrote the scripts and they directed, and then they give it to me, and I turn it into as much of a killer demo as I can, because at that point I'm just controlling the music and the sound design and the mixing and the mastering, and really, for many years my job was recording and mixing radio and television commercials and documentaries and promos. So since that's what I used to do, is make the real thing. When you have to make a demo of the real thing, all right, so I know how to do that. I know so that's why I can do the many different genres of demos that there are out there.
Well, Uncle Roy, I have one final question for you today, and the question I have is, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Well, I guess it's a two-part answer. Number one, I think I've left a certain legacy because 100 years from now, somebody's going to watch one of the films or listen to a recording of a jazz album that I've done, and my name is on there. So because of all the projects I've worked on that people will get to see and listen to, I feel I've already left my mark on the world. And again, not in any kind of egotistical way. It's out there. It's there. It's in a time capsule.
Absolutely.
It's very cool. The other thing, pretty much everybody in the voiceover industry already knows that I genuinely care, and I'm a very generous and philanthropic kind of a guy. I want to encourage you, if you've got a talent or a skill and you want your career to go and blossom and grow so that 2 years from now you're booking, you have good demo, you have good website, marketing tools, all that. I want to help you get there. I have a lot of knowledge. I hate to tell you, I've been doing this for 40 years.
That's a long time.
And I'm not even that old. So
You have a lot of knowledge to share.
I do, and it's a lot. Some of it's old school, but it's not about war stories and stuff. I mean, some of the stuff we talked about, those are old war stories, and that's great, and that's what led up to the new voiceover industry as it is now. Everybody in their home studio and internet and all that. Find me, ask questions, and let's do this.
Well, Uncle Roy, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on the show today. Would you please just give us a closeout as we wrap up our episode?
You've been listening to Uncle Roy Yokelson of Antland Productions. You can find me at antlandproductions.com, email antlandprods@aol.com, Skype antland_productions, and Twitter @antland.
Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us next Friday for our next special guest, the legendary Mark Grau from the legendary Mark Grau Studios. You won't want to miss this episode. Hey, are you ready to win some awesome prizes? All you have to do is like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter for your chance to be instantly and automatically entered for your chance to win.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.